This is Bootstrapped Web, episode 48. This is the podcast for you, founder who learns by doing as you bootstrap your business online. And today, very exciting show, we're talking about launch sequences, and we'll get an inside look at Brian's recent launch of the Productize course. I am Jordan.
And I'm Brian.
All right, so I can't wait to get into this little autopsy, this synopsis, look back at your launch and the first few weeks of the course. But before we do so, why don't we get a little bit of an update on what you've been up to over the past week?
Yeah, I am really excited about this episode. A lot of people have been emailing me and asking about how the course launch went, and really excited about it. So excited to kind of divulge all of the details, all the numbers, all the sequences, and everything. We're just gonna lay it all out in today's episode.
That's a little bit of foreshadow that it went pretty well. Otherwise, it wouldn't be nearly as exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
If it didn't go well, and I probably would have quit this podcast by now. I've been talking about it so much. Anyway, so yeah, update. Now we're in November. The course launch is behind me. I'm diving straight back into Restaurant Engine, full speed ahead now. Got a lot of big things that I want to do in November and December to kind of finish off this year with a big push on Restaurant Engine and Hotel Propeller. The main thing that I really want to do, and I've had this on my to-do list for like over a year, is do the first webinar for Restaurant Engine, and I really want to get this done in November, but all of like the little things are kind of like getting in the way, and they're holding me back, and they're delaying it. Like every day, I feel like I'm falling behind. So little things like I do need to migrate Restaurant Engine, like the mailing list, to Drip. I already migrated to Drip on my personal newsletter on CastJam, but Restaurant Engine is still on MailChimp, and I've been meaning to get it over to Drip, and so that's happening this week. And it's seemingly like a simple thing to just export the list, import into Drip, but it's actually way more complicated than that. I've got to make sure that all of the groups and segments are now mapped over to different tags, and I've got a whole bunch of custom fields, and then I've got to update the forms throughout the website. We've got a number of opt-in forms, so it's a multi-day, multi-step process. So I'm kind of like in the thick of that, and of course I can't start promoting a webinar if my mailing list is in like two different places. So that needs to come first. And then the other thing, this week I slightly updated the pricing on Restaurant Engine. The core plan is basically the same, but we changed some of the upgrades, little minor details, but again, takes a couple of full days of tweaking different systems, working out the different plans in Stripe, updating the pricing page, and then like all these emails and miscellaneous materials that might happen to mention pricing. We have to make sure those are all updated. So, just all these little things get in the way, and it's like I'm swimming against the current or something. I'm trying to make progress, but and then the other quick thing that I did, it wasn't quick. It actually took me like 3 long days. I wrote a really intense procedure to remove myself from handling billing issues. This is like one of those last things in Restaurant Engine, so like over the last year or two, I've been working towards making Restaurant Engine run on autopilot. It's a productized service, but it's completely delegated, systematized. My team is running on these procedures, but there are little processes here and there that I still have to touch myself, and one of those things, really frustratingly, was dealing with billing issues when a customer's credit card declines. We do use a service to automatically email them dunning emails, but then after 3 of those, if they ignore them, which a lot of customers do, then we have to start picking up the phone and figuring out what's up, and do we need to, suspend your account or get it straightened out. I was basically handling those things, or sometimes I would delegate it, but we didn't have a procedure for it. Well, now I have a kind of a bulletproof procedure, Trello board, whole system for if and that. We've got like how to deal with objections, all of this stuff for getting clients billing straightened out. And it's
I have seen one of these Brian Castle procedure documents. One of them exists for this podcast, and
yes,
it's not a mystery why you've been able to extract yourself from Restaurant Engine, because these things, it looks like a document, but it's a lot of thought and experience, and it's very hard to articulate your thoughts and experience on these little procedures to other people. So that's nice to get rid of that piece of it, especially asking people to update their credit card information. Not the most pleasurable use of time.
Yeah, exactly. And in the productized course, we have this private community. It's a private Facebook group, and that's actually become one of the really my favorite part of the whole course. And so I shared this whole procedure with the guys in that group. It's really kind of becoming somewhat of like a mastermind group, like an online mastermind forum, just kind of sharing things that I'm working on, because of course the productized course is all about automating and writing these systems and procedures. So I shared something that I actually wrote up this week, and then other people in the course are kind of chiming in and sharing what they're working on. So that's been a lot of fun as well.
Very interesting. I find people, when you share that type of document or template, one of these things that really takes a lot of thought to go from a blank Google Doc into something valuable in the business, people appreciate that so much, because it's like, even if they know that that's what they need to do, to have something to work off of instead of going from the blank slate is so helpful. So that's great. So that sounds like the type of thing that they paid for. That's really why they signed up, and the fact that you can pass off things that are happening in real time, it's awesome.
Yeah, totally. So Jordan, what's up on your end?
Okay, so let's breeze through my update quick so we can get to the juicy stuff about the productized launch. But over the past week, card hook integrations, this thing that's been plaguing me for weeks, is starting to work. So I actually hired a fellow podcaster. Here's an example of podcasting being great for lead generation. I'm working with Scott Ewell, one of the co-hosts of Bootstrapped with Kids, and working with his company to build these integrations. And in the meantime, I've got a few other developers that I kind of had going at the same time. So the integrations are starting to roll in, and I plan on being very aggressive on the integration marketing front. That's really been working for me.
That's awesome. And right. I mean, adding those integrations for you is essentially opening up entire new customer bases, because each integration is like a different e-commerce platform.
Exactly, and it's a whole new crop of potential customers. And what I have found is that a personal approach is what works. So instead of standing back and saying, there's an e-commerce platform, let me do an integration, and then let me announce to my tiny little audience that I have an integration, instead I reach out to the company, I befriend and form a genuine relationship with somebody at the company. They are excited and appreciative that we're going through the process, and then using that, it's not even using, not like in the negative sense, it's just like a genuine, natural progression of the relationship to say, hey, we've worked on this together, we now work with your platform, how about I write a blog post about it and you can send it out to your customer base on how to do this, how to recover abandoned carts. And so in that way, it's like an integration, but then right off the bat, I get exposed to a bunch of potential customers. So that has worked well.
I like that a lot. It's kind of like the biz dev integration marketing combined with a little content marketing, like guest posting.
Right, because they're appreciative. It's great content for them, and I can put together a killer post with screenshots and explanation, and obviously the call to action to sign up or download like the sample abandoned cart campaign.
Cool.
That has really been working. So I will continue to pursue that more and more aggressively. Yeah, the latest one is with FoxyCart, so that'll be good. The other thing I've really been working on, struggling with, whatever you want to call it, using a lot of my brain power and time up on, is an SEO strategy. So, people carry around baggage from their previous experiences, and in the e-commerce business, SEO is very successful for us. It's a big reason why our acquirer was interested in purchasing the company, because he intended to stop paid advertising, and what he was able to see was that our SEO was solid enough that if he turned off paid advertising as he intended to do, that revenue would still be there, and more profitable revenue.
Yeah.
So SEO worked, and so I want to pursue SEO for CartHook, but 4 years later, SEO these days is tricky. It's like, what do? Hire a traditional SEO firm? It's not like I'm a fencing company and I want my local area to know about me. This is different, and I think a lot of software, a lot of people just struggle with this in general. And what I came up with that I can definitely talk about as it starts to be implemented is a content and SEO strategy hybrid.
Yeah.
And so I talked to a few traditional SEO companies, and I just hesitated on it because it didn't make sense. The blogging thing doesn't make sense to me unless it's very actionable and has results tied to it. So basically what I'm doing is I hired some writers. So I'm going to be creating content, or paying for it to be created anyway, and I'm going to marry that with a content linking strategy described best, I believe, by Backlinko. You heard of backlinko.com?
I think I've heard of it. I haven't really looked at it.
Brian Dean, he's an SEO guy, but he's fantastic. So he has a technique called the skyscraper technique, where he shows how you can do research on what content you should be creating before you actually create it. So instead of just coming up with ideas off the top of my head, you do this research, then you have it produced, and then as part of the research in the skyscraper technique process, you're finding people who have linked to that content. So you use BuzzSumo to see who is linking to that content, so that after the blog post is produced, you can then reach out to those same people who are presumably more likely to share and link to your content.
Right. Is that something that you will be doing, or you're hiring that firm to do it?
So here's the thing. When I talk to these SEO people, I told them that is my ideal. I want you to do the research. I want you to come to me with recommendations. I want to choose the topics. I want you to go off and have the content produced, and then I want you to reach out to these people. And they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. That is just so far outside of what we do that they can't do it. So I'm basically just going to get started. Right? It's 3 parts: research, content production, and then sharing, linking, whatever outreach, whatever you want to call it. So right now I have somebody hired for parts 1 and 2. And so part 3 will be me for the time being until I can get that into a procedure, and I can outsource it, hire someone else to basically say, okay, here's the research, here's how you get their Twitter profiles, here's how you get their email addresses, and then put that into an email software that can send things out on a larger scale.
Yeah, I mean, we should definitely do a whole episode on. I feel like I say this every week, but we really should do a whole episode on like SEO today. Right, like how it's changed and what it means. And you and I were talking about this yesterday, like SEO for a SaaS versus something like an e-commerce business, and I think they are super different.
Right.
And I can see how, like, for an e-commerce store, you rank for all these like really long tail like product item names and things like that, and those and your spend on SEO can be directly tied to product sales for an e-commerce company. But for SaaS, or for really any other kind of like brand, it's really all about brand building, right?
Well,
and like content, and yes, like content can help you get to the front page for certain key terms, and we've seen that with Restaurant Engine, but still, I think a lot of our customers, both with Restaurant Engine and like now with this course, it's not because we're ranking in Google for, although we do come up for things like restaurant website design, it's people end up buying because they're on our mailing list and they trust the content.
Right. So that's the thing. So it's brand building in a sense, but that is not the primary goal. The primary goal is still to capture email addresses. And so just links in general, like, it just didn't make enough sense to me. It wasn't quantifiable enough. So now with this type of strategy, it's like I can accept that. I can accept spending money on that because I can say, okay, not only is it going to help SEO in general over the long term, but in the much shorter term, it will get more traffic to the site. And traffic I see as like raw material for a marketer. So you can't experiment, you can't try things, you can't try different opt-in, different pop-ups, different offers unless you have traffic. So all I see this as providing me with raw material to then work with. How do I capture the email address? What do I need to offer them? How do I go from email address to an actual free trial conversion? What do I need to put in place? So that's next. But first, I just want to get this rolling so traffic starts to come in over the next few weeks and months. And then once that's in place, then set about the actual fun stuff. Okay, what kind of pop-up? What kind of content upgrade? What kind of autoresponder? Is a webinar involved? And that's the optimization piece of it.
Yeah, totally. And I think investing, like especially if you're going to hire a team or anything, like if you're investing in content creation, a lot of people come from this from the SEO standpoint, like, all right, create content, get SEO. But I think really it's more what you just said. Really, it's about invest in creating great content, and the direct return on that is email subscribers. Create content that's so good that makes people want to subscribe, and then you continue to send them more stuff and market to them over email. And the SEO stuff is kind of like a byproduct that happens over time.
Right.
So you measure your results in terms of email subscribers, and not so much in terms of ranking, which should come if you're just putting quality stuff out there and building an audience.
And it's interesting to hear us say that, because that sounds to me like Google accomplishing their goal of not allowing search rankings to be gamed, but to be earned. So if you start to take your focus off of the keywords and the meta tags and the links and the directories and forums and all these different things and put it toward email addresses, it's almost like, okay, it has to be good enough for the email address, and then you don't have to worry about all the algorithmic piece of it, because if people link to you, it'll work out. So it's really it's a good evolution over the last few years.
I love it. Like there are so many marketers out there over the last couple of years who are just like, oh man, Google killed my business, and all these algorithm changes are devastating and everything. But I love this trend, because it kind of takes it back to its roots, like getting back to email and getting back to personal relationships between you and your audience. Because you own your email list. You own those relationships, and you have to treat them well in order to make sales. That goes any business, internet, offline or online. An SEO-based business is completely dependent on what Google does, and then the same goes for social media. Like if your business is entirely based on Facebook, what if Facebook changes their rules, which they do? It's all about email, man.
Yep. That's where it's moving, and that's what makes sense currently. So that'll be interesting over the next few weeks to see how that starts to play out. There are a few factors in there that you gloss over that are really important. What to write about, the quality of the content, all these other pieces of it. But for now, the last piece of my update, believe it or not, I'm actually working on my first blog post that I've been talking about for a long time, but now I finally have something I'm really excited about, and I plan to publish that next week.
And this is on your personal blog?
Yes, on JordanGall.com. It's time for that to start working. I just have so many ideas and so much built up potential and energy on it that it's time to go.
Awesome.
So that's it for the update. But I think we had a few very, very smart people leave us iTunes reviews.
Yes, we did. So let's take a look at those. We've got two new ones to mention today. We've got one. Somebody goes by the name of Max Is Now. that's a funny screen name there. 5 stars. He says, I actually come from a technical background, but have a serious interest in starting my own bootstrapped business. These guys got topics from the technical, marketing, and biz dev buckets. Really great to get a full stack insight. I like that.
Cool.
Especially since I'm clueless in the business aspects. Well, all of us are clueless, really. We're just figuring it out here. So awesome. Thank you for that. And then the next one comes from BK Moore, 5 stars. He says, after listening to 2 episodes back to back, I was hooked. Brian and Jordan take a very authentic and transparent approach to sharing their experiences working on the web. This podcast has not only brought a source of inspiration, but has taught me many lessons that I often turn around and apply in some way in in my wife and I's online business, and that is awesome to hear. Thank you, BK Moore.
Very cool. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. And if you're enjoying this and getting value out of it, we would appreciate an iTunes review. That's what helps us move up in the rankings, as we're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, so let's move into today's topic. It's all about Brian's recent launch of his course. And yeah, we're all looking forward to hearing all about it, Brian. So, I guess we can take kind of a sequential approach to it in terms of idea and creation and sales and email and all that. But why don't we talk about brass tacks? Give us some of the dirt on the sales.
Sure. So the sales numbers overall from the productized course, and by the way, you can check out the course at castjam.com/productize just to see what it is we're talking about. So overall, let me frame this. So there was a launch period, and the launch period was 11 days long. I was originally going to do like a 2-day launch period, and the launch period being the discount, the sale for the course. I offered $100 off both packages. I extended it to 11 days long only because I had a bunch of guest articles and podcasts scheduled to go out, which were coming out a little bit later than I hoped. So I wanted to kind of extend this period so that the launch covers that. And I can talk more in a minute about the guest stuff and how they came a little bit late. But anyway, so I extended it to an 11-day launch. I launched on October 21st, and the launch discount lasted through midnight on Halloween, October 31st. So on day one, at the end of day one, sales were $4,431. Day 7, after the first week, sales hit $10,341. And I was pretty happy at that point because my goal going into this whole thing was to hit 10,000. I ran the numbers in my head, and I thought I could do that, and I did that in 7 days. And by day 11, the final day of this launch period, it went up to 17,998. So $2 off of 18K.
Very, very nice. That was the golf clap over here from Portland, Oregon. It's really impressive, and congratulations. Very nice to see. And now we get to not only hear about that and be a little jealous, but much more importantly, we get to talk about it and see how people can apply this to their experiences and their launches. And I think it's really interesting to hear you talk about what you did and then also what you learned.
Yeah.
What you would do differently, what you would do again, what you would double down on.
Yep.
So it's really real-world experience and knowledge that can only be learned by going through this process. But we get to listen in.
Yeah, sure. So before I get into the whole sequence of everything, a few more things on these numbers. So there were 2 packages available. One is the productized course. That basically includes all of the course materials, the videos, the audio, the book, the case studies, and the live community, the Facebook group that we have. There were 49 sales of that package. The normal price, ongoing is $395, and it was discounted by $100 to $295. That's like the main package that's available ongoing. And then for a short period of time during this launch period, there was the productized live package, and this was the higher one. That includes the whole course plus a live workshop and a live one-on-one coaching session with me. Both of those are recorded, and the workshop is kind of like a small mastermind group where a small group of us will get on a Google Hangout and we'll talk about each other's productized businesses and give you feedback and strategy and track some goals and things like that. So 49 sales of the core course, and there were 6 sales of the workshop package. I was actually hoping to sell 10, only made 6 on that one, which is okay. I actually did want to keep the group workshop small. If I had sold 10, I would have broken it into 2 group workshops so that it's 5 people in each. But so there's 6 of us, and that's going to happen. So that first workshop is going to happen this November. I'm really excited about that.
And how much was the workshop level?
So the normal is $695, and that was discounted by $100 to $595.
So that's interesting. So it's like 10% of sales were for the workshop, and then how much percentage of the revenue was it, right? So 6 times, is it $500?
Yeah.
Right. It was $595, and during the sale it was $495.
During the sale it was $595. The normal is $695.
5 times 6, that's 3,500 divided by 18,000. Yeah, so it's like 10% of the seats brought in 20% of the revenue.
Yeah, and let's see what else. In terms of, oh, and by the way, the very first sale that came in was for the workshop, and it was funny because this sale happened before I even sent the Productize is Open email. It came like 10 minutes before that. So this guy must have been, because I actually put it live like 20 minutes before I sent the email, and he must have caught the landing page and made the purchase. So that was pretty cool.
Super fan right there. Not so much.
Well, he and I were emailing the night before, and he told me like he was planning on buying it. So that was pretty cool.
Very interesting.
So, and then email list numbers. Some people ask about this. So on the launch day, on October 21st, my overall list, my newsletter list on CastJam was 2,311 subscribers. And I break that down in a few ways. Within that, I've been offering this Productize Crash Course, which is kind of a six lesson email course for free. Still available now. It's been available for a number of months. There were 1,083 people on that.
And that 1,083 is part of the overall list of 2,300.
Yes.
So that's like almost 50% of the overall list either came in through the crash course or were on the main list and opted in for the crash course.
Yeah. So the Productize Crash Course, I launched that. Like I opened that up like early summer, I think. So maybe 5 or 6 months ago. I've been building my list, taking it seriously for a little bit more than a year now. So the prior 1,000 people probably came in like back in 2013, and through other stuff. And then within that, and I'll get to this in a minute, but in late August, I opened up the Productize landing page. This was about 2 months before the course launched. Opened up the landing page, announced it, and started collecting early access email list subscribers. So by the time launch day arrived, there were 182 people on that Productize early access list. So those 182 people are probably like the most clearly interested in this product. They've read everything about it. They saw kind of a teaser about the pricing, saying that on that page it said it was going to be in the low to mid 3-digit range. So
yeah, and then they requested to be notified as soon as it's ready.
Yep. So okay, so that's the email list. Those are the sales numbers.
Now here's the thing though. That was on launch day. So maybe toward the end of this, let's remember to update where the email list is after launch day, because one of these things about doing a launch is that in the process of trying to sell something, you're also building up your email list, which some people buy, but then you can also sell to them later. So it's like a...
Yeah, I'll actually give you that number now. So
okay, so it started off at 2,300.
Yeah, started off at 2,300. That was on October 21st. Today, we're recording this episode. Today is November 7th, and I checked it this morning. I think my list is at 2,800. I think a little bit more than 2,800 right now. So I added 500 over the last 2 weeks, which it's been doing okay. I did have a big, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, the guest posts, especially the Michael Hyatt post, added a lot, and that actually happened, that came out like October 18th, a couple of days before the launch, and that one post added I think 800 subscribers.
And most of those right into the crash course?
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
All right, so let's kind of break down everything. I will get to the entire sequence of emails in just a minute, but first I want to step back and talk about the idea for the course, right? Why did I decide to do a course on productized services, and why did that resonate? Why was that the right idea?
Yeah, I remember talking to you about this months ago when you were still settling on the idea, and you basically told me your plan for how you're going to go about making sure that this is the right thing.
Yeah. So what I did, first of all, I'm not just going to create a course about anything that I think will sell. If I wanted to do that, I could write a course about online porn, right? I mean, I'm not going to write about something I needed to write about something that I know and experience and have experience with and have demonstrated that, through my work with Restaurant Engine and stuff like that. So that's number one. I wanted to write about productized services because I've done it myself. I really like this whole process of building up and systematizing a business. Okay, so that's that. And then the other piece is, of course, I need to know my audience, and I've really invested heavily in this in 2014. Now that my audience is starting to grow a little bit, it's not huge by any means, but I have four-figure numbers now, and I think that's enough to start really honing in on learning as much as I possibly can about them. And I do this in two ways. Number one, I have a welcome email, and I suggest everybody does this, even if you only have 10 email subscribers today. Add this to your email newsletter, an autoresponder that goes out either the same day or the next day after a person signs up. For me, I send it out the next day. It's a very simple email. I've talked about it a number of times. It just says, the subject line says questions. The body says something like, you may know a thing or two about me by now, but now I want to learn about you. Here are 3 questions. Number 1, what are you working on? Number 2, where do you want to be in the next 12 months? And number 3, what are the biggest hurdles that are holding you back between now and getting to that goal?
Yep. I am blatantly stealing that.
Do it. I tell everyone.
Yeah, you emailed me maybe yesterday. Somebody responded to that email with a question, right? Not even a question. They filled out a few sentences for each of your questions. It was beautiful. It's perfect.
Yeah.
You forwarded it to me because it had something to do with both of us and the podcast in general. But then I scrolled down and saw your email, and I said, "Oh shit." I'm copying. Not only I'm telling you, here's my to-do list. It says under jordangobb.com, welcome autoresponder - copy Brian's intro.
There you go.
And I feel fine about it because I think you stole the "what are you working on" question from me, so we're even.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually don't know who I think I stole part of it from Brennan and a couple of other people, but yeah, definitely steal it. Everybody listening to this, do it. This has been huge. Seriously huge for everything that I do on CashJam.com. I get a number of responses just like that one every single day in my inbox. And after these guest posts, like the Michael High one, I was sifting through hundreds of these people responding, and I get really long. People write so much, and
that's the gold, man. That is right from the customer's mouth. Not that everyone's a customer, but what to talk about, what to market on, any of it directly from people. I talked about this in my Mixergy interview when people called us for the e-commerce store. When we listened to them and adjusted based on that, you find more success. So
it's gold, and you start to hear the same sentiments over and over and over again.
That's the stuff.
So yeah, I mean, anyone can do this. If you only have 10 email subscribers, start doing it so that every single new subscriber sees this email. Of course, not everybody's going to reply to it, but if you keep it short, just a couple of questions. Like, I get so many people saying, wow, I've never seen someone take such an interest in their subscribers before. I've seen a few people say that, and then the other thing that I hear is they'll say, like, look, I know this is an automated email. You're probably not even going to reply to this, which I actually do reply to every single one.
Right.
But anyway, a lot of them say, just the act of me answering these questions has been helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. And the people that don't answer, you still get good karma with because you asked, and you don't do any additional work for it. You just set it up once, so it's a no-brainer and a great takeaway. And
if you don't have a large list, this is like an ongoing survey that just runs constantly. I've been running it for over a year. I continue to, so it's awesome. And then the other thing that I did, and I did this over the summer, I wrote some blog posts around it, was I did run a one-time survey of my list. I put up a form on my site, asked a couple of questions like, what do you do? Like, are you a freelancer? Do you work at a job? Are you doing products business? Where do you want to be? A few more questions, kind of digging further into those same questions.
Yes, but you weren't lazy about it. You didn't just get survey questions. You actually went the next step, and you got in touch with them.
Yes, I did that. Well, I got in touch with people who signed up for the productized early access list, so that was a little bit separate.
Okay.
But the I did do a few calls with the survey people too. Actually, now that I think about it. Okay, so the biggest insight that I get from all of these responses to my welcome email and all of the responses to the survey was, first of all, the vast majority of my audience make their living as freelancers, consultants. A lot of them are web developers, but not all of them. And then the other really big insight here is that almost everybody wants to transition away from client work and into building a products business. And I mean, it's not surprising. Like, I write about that stuff. I've made that transition myself. So people like to kind of tune into these this type of content that I write. So
doing client work sucks universally.
Yeah,
it's not like people are like so into it. So it does make sense. But what I love is that what you ended up offering isn't asking them to make a huge leap. It's not, I will teach you how to make a product. It is, that's next. But first, let me teach you how to systemize your service so that it acts more like a product.
Yeah,
that because will bring you the freedom you're looking for.
Exactly, and that's why I wanted to do this course, was because I strongly believe that productized consulting or productized services is the most accessible, kind of like risk-free, or what's the way to say this? Like it's the path it's like the path of least resistance.
Yeah, highest likelihood of success.
That productization.
Most achievable. Yeah, it's all these things that make sense. It's not.
Yeah, like it's based on something you're already doing. It's easy to do it alongside. You can literally launch something like this in a weekend, as we see in a lot of the case studies. So it's like, I want to give them something that they can actually do and actually help them level up, and that's what I was teaching. So that's why the idea I think resonated.
Yep.
Other people have been asking.
That's a lot of work to put in before you have an idea, and then instead of just doing it, you swallow your pride and you say, I might be wrong. Let me actually do the work to make sure that this thing is going to be successful before I put the work in. Yeah, and actually the first thing that I did after I learned this stuff from the survey was I created the free productized crash email course. So that started sometime over the summer, and I immediately saw a higher opt-in rate on that than my previous email courses and things. So I knew I was kind of on the right track. I started putting out heavily content around productization and stuff like that. Okay, so the other thing that people ask about is how long it took to produce the course, and the answer to that is basically 2 months total from the time that I started working on producing the course to launch day. And the first month was heavily writing intensive. I was writing a ton. I wrote 21 lessons, which amounted to the course book, which is over 170 pages long. Meanwhile, during that same month, I'm writing 2,000-word blog articles on my own site. I'm writing 2,500-word articles on guest articles for other sites like Smashing Magazine and all these other ones. So like basically that whole month of September, I was writing 2,000 words a day or something crazy like that. It was just nonstop writing. Month 2, so this was like the month of October leading up to the October 21st launch, was all about video recording, video editing. Well, there it is.
There's our friend.
Take a moment to say goodbye to the sirens. Yep. I don't know when you're moving offices, but
at least like 2 more weeks. Anyway, so yeah, month 2, October, I was recording video, editing video, recording audio versions. This was a huge pain in the ass. I was like, I was using a DSLR video. I wanted to get better at video production. I'm still a little bit of a hack when it comes to this stuff, but I kind of just muscled it out. And my office here, as we know, is so loud, I couldn't do the video recording during the day when I'm here. I had to come in at night just to do video recording. I did that for a week of just coming in at night, when it's nice and quiet and nobody's around, and recorded a bunch of video. And then the night before the launch, and I was hustling, like I'm doing all this other work for Restaurant Engine, like things are going on. One of my teammates is out on maternity leave during this month. Like it was crazy, like total hectic craziness. And so I really wanted to get all this stuff, all the course material done in time for launch. I thought that I might be a little bit late, which I was okay with. If I had to launch with like 18 of the 21 lessons and get the other few in later in the week, I would have been okay with that. But I really just wanted to be done with it on October 21st and then take like a week off.
Right.
So I came into the office on October 20th, stayed here until 5 in the morning, recording the final 2 or 3 lessons and editing those, getting them exported and uploaded to the site, and just hustling.
That's hardcore, man. That's a lot of work. I have a saying that I usually, when someone asks me what I'm doing, and I basically explain it as that the world refuses to just hand over money because I'm awesome. You have to work for it and create value for other people, and that's what you did, man. You worked hard. 170 pages of writing. Look, the videos, like how necessary were the videos, or how much of it was this is going to be better if I create these, and so I'm going to make it better by doing these?
I think that they added something to the course. I wanted it to be almost like a personal coaching session, like you're sitting here with me and I'm talking through some concepts. Of course, the videos do include a bunch of like screenshots and text overlays and like listing bullets and things like that. I would have actually liked to do more visuals in the videos aside from just me talking. And at some point I plan to kind of come out with like a version 2 of the course, and I'll do a little bit more of that. But I do like having the video in there. The audio, which I recorded separately, the audio on like the nice microphone, and optimized that. So the MP3s are really good to kind of just load up on your iPod if you like that. And
you went all out, man. This is not what I would recommend for someone just starting out.
No,
this is how a pro goes above and beyond.
And part of me kind of not necessarily regrets. Like I'm proud of the package that I put together, but I could have done something simpler. I could have invested less time, but I don't know. I just wanted to do something like this.
I think you're over delivering by such a wide margin that it will come back as a benefit to you. The people are going to get so much out of it, and when you relaunch it and continue selling it, you could be very confident in raising your prices, very confident in the product that's already there and the results that people are going to get out of it. So it will pay off.
Yeah. So let's get into the email sequence, right? And I'm going to start all the way back on October 20th, and this is 59 days until the launch day. And this is so this was the time that I officially announced that I'm starting to work on this product. And before I get into this, all of these emails, I'm going to talk about something like 10 emails, maybe more than that. All of these emails, my thinking is I always want to be giving you value. Up front, the purpose of every single email is I need to be giving you something that you can find value for free, read this article, whatever it is, and attach to that some kind of mention of the productized course launch. So on October 20th, the purpose of the newsletter was to announce this week's article, as most of my newsletters are. That article was called "Why Build a Productized Service Instead of Software." So I'm starting to kind of like introduce this idea of productized services, like what they are, why they're valuable. That's what the article was about. And in the PS of that email, that was the first time I mentioned, hey, there's this productized course landing page. I just put it up. Check it out. You can enter your email to join the early access list. So this is 2 months before launch, and early access is now open to sign up for.
So you write a quality, valuable blog post about the topic, and then you mention at the end of the email that you're working on a product that's very, very similar to what you just talked about. So you proved your expertise in it, and then said, if you're interested in more along the lines of this same topic, this thing is going to come out in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, before I go on, I also want to mention here, on my blog today, the day that this episode publishes, I'm also putting out a companion article on CastJam.com all about the launch sequence and some of the lessons learned there. And I'm going to be offering this whole notes, all the notes here, including all the screenshots of every single one of these newsletters, the wording, the subject lines, the numbers. All of it is packaged in this package, which you can grab at you can go to castjam.com/launch to get that. We'll have a link from the Bootstrapped Web show notes as well. So okay, so that was the October 20th email, and then the next one that I sent was on September 8th. So at this point, we are 49 days away from the launch date. Again, purpose of this email newsletter was a new article that I wrote called "Having Something to Sell." Now, this one was a little bit interesting because at the top of this newsletter, like the first sentence of the newsletter, I mentioned, the productized course is happening, and this article that I wrote, "Having Something to Sell," is based on the conversations that I was having with people who joined that early access list. So I reached out to a bunch of them. I had about 10 to 12 conversations with those people, like, why are you interested in this? What are you working on? What's challenging you? Things like that. And one of the big things that they told me was like, I'm selling my time, I'm selling these hours, but I really just want something to sell. Like, here's a product, here's an offer, it has value. So I wrote a whole article based on that. And I'm kind of like responding to what people are telling me,
right.
And it's also building anticipation for this course.
So that phrase, "something to sell," that's something that came from, right, not from your brain.
No, that was literally something somebody told me. Like,
right. And you
that's how they phrased it.
Right. You take that, and that's the title of the article.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. So this is the beginning of the process of taking what you learn and bringing it right back into the customer base.
Yep.
Awesome.
September 22nd is the next email I send, and now we are 29 days away from the launch. So I'm emailing my list about every 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so again, my newsletter, almost as always, the purpose is to tell you about a new article that I wrote, and this one is called "How to Delegate as a Creative." So I wanted to write an article about the automation and the systematization side of it, because that's a huge part of the course, is writing those procedures and things like that. So I wrote that article all about that. The productized course is mentioned very briefly at the end of this email. Okay, and then the next one is October 6th. So now we are 15 days away from launch. Again, I've got another article called "How to Uncomplicate Your Marketing." So this kind of covers the third piece of the course. I'm not necessarily copying material out of the course. I'm writing these unique articles, but they are based on a lot of the same concepts that I'm writing simultaneously for the course. So this one is about marketing, about knowing your customer, kind of things that we just talked about, and there's a bunch of lessons on that in the course. So I wrote an article about that. Okay, and this newsletter, unlike the other ones where I kind of mentioned productize, like in the PS at the end, this one right at the very top, I'm saying, okay, the date is set. We now have the launch date. I'm telling you what it is. It's 15 days away, October 21st. Remember it, right?
So less ambiguous as you get closer to the date. So this one, the first 2 paragraphs are, very straightforwardly talking about the launch and the date and when it's going to be expected and all that.
Yep. October 15th, so this is about 1 week later. Now we are 6 days away from launch. I don't have an article today, but I do give my list access to 1 full lesson in Productize. So by this time, I didn't have all the lessons done, but I had at least this one done so that I can give them access. And I was also creating the membership site on castjam.com where where students log in and gain access to all the course material.
Right.
And I set it up in a way so that this one lesson can be accessed for free. So anyone who gets that lesson, they go in. I used a plugin called Restrict Content Pro. That's how I set up the membership site. But this newsletter that I sent on October 15th, it's, hey, again, there's 6 days away from the launch, and today I'm giving you access, a behind-the-scenes look, a preview. You get access to one entire lesson. That includes the video, the audio, and there's also like a worksheet that came with this lesson.
Awesome. So this is now a taste, a preview of, if you think you might be interested, take a look, and then this is what you can expect. So how did you choose which lesson to give?
Yeah, that was a tough decision because a lot of the lessons are they're very actionable and sequence-based. So I didn't want to just take like lesson 13 of 20 because it wouldn't really make a lot of sense coming out of context. So I chose one of the earlier lessons, and this one is called Why Productize. And, because it takes more of like a high-level strategic look at why you're productizing, and it actually gives you a framework to work through to help you make better decisions about the changes that you're going to make in your business. And by the way, any of you listening to this, you can get this lesson for free if you want to check it out. So that was the whole purpose of this email on the 15th was get this lesson for free. Okay, then we go to October 20th. And now we are 1 day away from the launch. The launch is happening tomorrow. The subject line is everything you need to know about Productize. So I did write a new article, but that wasn't the focus of this newsletter. So near the top, I say I did write a new article, and that article is called How to Get a Promotion as a Freelancer. Again, built on a lot of the concepts from the course. But the meat of this newsletter, and it's a long one, I kind of cover all the key questions about the course. And we're 1 day away now, so this is the very first time that I actually announced the pricing for the course. Up until now, in terms of pricing, on the landing page I wrote, pricing is not finalized yet, but it will be in the low to mid 3 figures. That was the copy that I used. So if
right,
you're
just a little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Don't expect this to be $50.
Right. Exactly. And I wanted to put that right near the email opt-in. So if you're opting in, chances are you've read that and this is in your range and all that.
Right. So this email I find really interesting because what you're doing here, this is newsletter marketing, right? It's not a launch sequence. It's not an autoresponder that leads into an offer. This is marketing to your newsletter, and one of the biggest concerns there is not screwing up the relationship. Yeah. So in this email, it looks like what you did, whether it was purposeful or just out of your nature, because you put a lot of importance on the relationship with your readers, you allowed people who are interested, you allowed people who are not interested in the Productize product to jump right over to the article without dealing with your pitch. But the people who were interested could read on. So it's almost like preserving the integrity of the relationship.
Yeah, that is basically what I was going for there. I didn't want to just send an email without giving something of value. I didn't want it to just be all about the course. And even if you're interested in the course, I still want to give you something. Like, there's a reason you're opening this email today, and yeah, you can learn about the course, but you could also get an article that should hopefully teach you something.
Right, and I don't know if that's the approach to maximize sales, but it does sound to me like the right approach for your situation and for, to just do things the way you normally do them, which is I demand to provide value if I'm going to email these people.
Yeah, and I mean, now that being said, this particular email is the first email in a while, maybe ever, that I'm not, like in the subject line was everything you need to know about Productize, the course. It wasn't about the article, and I did notice bit of a spike in unsubscribes after this email, and I had some more unsubscribes in the emails that are coming up. Kind of expected, really, but
how dare you try to make a living after all this work that you do?
you know, but I am trying to combat that by giving some kind of free value. Okay, so that was one day away. This takes us to October 21st, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. That is the time I chose to open the cart, as they say. This was a very, very short email sent to the entire list. It says, you know, the cart is open, or productize is open, I think was the subject line, and short and to the point, you know,
Link to the sales page.
Link to the sales page, and that's it.
Cool. So this is really important. This is unexpected. People have been getting emails, been talking about it, and then the day before you give them a heads up, and then people get this, and it's expected.
Yeah, this is not coming out of the blue. If you're on my list, if you haven't unsubscribed by now, you're expecting it. Okay, so that's the first day of the launch, and of course I think I gave a reminder in that email that it's $100 off, you know, for the launch sale and all that. 3 days later, so this is now day 3 of the launch, October 23rd. I didn't have a new article of my own or on my blog to share because I was just way too busy getting the course out. Didn't have time to write one, but I did use this day to send out links to 5 articles that I wrote, or other podcast articles and podcasts, guest posts and guest appearances on podcasts. Mm-hmm. That was the purpose of this newsletter.
Right, I think we talked about this, and you were guilt-tripping yourself about not having a new article, and I told you still had like so much new content that people would want to hear, especially people who are in the middle. They know that your product is available, and they're not sure. And I know the way my brain operates. I just consume a lot of what someone has to say, and each interview covers something else, or a topic is brought up in a different way, and it all helps.
Yeah. So I think that was good. A lot of people found some of the articles that are elsewhere on the internet that maybe if you're on my newsletter it hasn't come across your radar. So that was good. In that email, I think I mentioned the Michael Hyatt post, a post on Web Designer Depot, and like the Bootstrapped with Kids interview, Startups for the Rest of Us, and a couple of other ones. So that was good, and then October 27th. So now, again, this is 3 days later, and right now I'm emailing my list like every 3 days, and this is a lot more frequent than I usually do. And I actually had one person email me back saying, "Hey man, I got like 8 emails from you in the last week. It's a little overkill. I appreciate the content," because what happens was I had a lot of new people join my email course. The crash course. So they're getting like the daily emails for 6 days plus my launch announcements.
Damn.
But what I did, that welcome email that I sent to everyone that I talked about earlier, the 3 questions,
mm-hmm.
I tweaked that just for this week. So just during that week, I added a paragraph at the top of that welcome email. I said, because these are people who just joined me, who just discovered me in the last couple of days.
Right.
I wrote a paragraph that said something like, "Hey, you happen to have caught me on a really hectic week. I'm launching my new course, Productize. So just to let you know, you're going to get a few extra emails from me than normal."
Right.
So I had that in that email for about this week, and then I took it out.
Very aware. Very well done.
Cool. So that was October 27th with the links to guest posts and podcasts. This takes us to October 30th. So now we're 1 day left on the launch sale. And I sent this like the evening of the 30th. What is it? Okay, so telling you that, again, I don't have a new article for you this day, but I am telling you there's 1 day left. You can get $100 off. I give you a little bit more info about what's included, like there's over 3 hours of course material, 3 hours of course material, like 5 hours of case study material, a little more details in case you didn't catch them earlier, And this was actually the first time that I had a couple of testimonials to include in the email, because now people have been buying it, so I was able to reach out to a few people and ask for testimonials. So I included those in the PS, and that was that. That's out on October 30th. The final email that I sent was on the last day, on October 31st. This is Halloween. At 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I sent this. It's just 3 hours left to go in the launch sale. And I only sent this one to the early access list, so a very small segment of the overall list. I didn't send it to everyone else, just because, again, there's no extra value here. It's just a warning. I did want to tell the early access people, like, look, since you haven't bought yet, I was able to exclude the people who did buy. If you joined early access, you expressed some interest in this at some point. It's on sale right now, and the email basically just says, like, now's the time. After every one, and so that's the last email that I've sent. After every one of these emails, surprisingly, you do see a spike in sales.
Right.
Sales kind of die down a couple of days, and then as soon as I send an email, that day I'll get a whole bunch of sales.
Right. So some people unsubscribe and some people buy, which is, pretty much perfect.
Yeah. I definitely I had more unsubscribes than usual during this launch period, but at the same time my list grew. So.
I would ignore the unsubscribes entirely.
Yeah.
So that's the launch sequence. I feel like this podcast is like a little blueprint for how to do this. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I did. I put a heavy amount of effort into guest blogging and guest podcasts. So I'll just cover that real quick right here at the end.
Right.
And this has been a strategy that I continue to come back to for years, year after year. I always do guest article writing. It helps a lot with building the email list. My only regret on this was I reached out to these blogs and these podcasts maybe a couple of weeks too late. So I started reaching out in early September, about 2 months away from the course launch. But what happens is, if we agree to an article in early September, I end up writing it like 2 weeks later. They approve it a week after that, and then they don't publish it maybe for another month. So a lot of these things came in a little bit too late. And even like the Michael Hyatt landed just a couple of days before the launch, so I can't expect those people who just met me to buy,
right, a few days later.
Yeah, exactly. So,
right.
But I still leveraged these existing relationships with blogs, which I've built up over a number of years. You and I kind of talked about this in a previous episode. So I had an article on Michael Hyatt's blog, one on Mashable. I've had several articles on there over the years. Web Designer Depot, another one that I've come back to several times. Smashing Magazine. This one actually hasn't published yet. I'm expecting it to come out sometime this November, and I was really happy that I got one on there because that's my first article to go up on Smashing Magazine. Podcasts. I did like a podcast tour.
Yes, you did.
And
I go to my Stitcher app, and I just like go to my favorites list, and then like every other one is with Brian Castle. Like that worked.
I know it was a little crazy, but it was fun because I think I did talk about like different things on different shows. So here's like a little actionable thing for you to take away here. This is what I did to do outreach for these podcasts. Step one, reach out to the people that I already know, right? So I kind of met Brecht briefly at a microconf, and we had been emailing, so I got on Bootstrapped with Kids. I emailed them, emailed Justin Jackson, got on Product People, emailed Mike and Rob from Startups for the Rest of Us. Mike was kind enough to have me on there. These are all people that I've met before at conferences and have been emailing with. I was on the Gently Mad, which I think is publishing in a couple of weeks, with my friend Adam Clark. Matt Report, another friend, Matt Medeiros, he was just on our podcast. So those are people that I knew, reached out to them, and booked a show with them. But then I got on a few other ones using kind of like a cold email outreach. And what I did was I went to iTunes and I searched for freelancing. Again, I know that my audience are freelancers. The course is targeted at freelancers and bootstrappers. So I searched for those keywords in iTunes, found a bunch of shows around the topics of freelancing and bootstrapping a business. I targeted only those shows that actually have reviews and that are actually publishing episodes. Because you find a lot of old podcasts in the iTunes directory that haven't published in like a year, or maybe they are publishing, but there's clearly like not a very big audience. So
that's pointless.
Yeah, I kind of skipped those. I click over to the site of the good ones and reached out to them. Did a cold email. In that email, I said, I'm assuming you don't know who I am, so I included a bunch of links like, here's my blog, here's my Twitter, here's what I'm working on.
Right.
I can talk about productized services. If you even need, I can give you a bunch of questions and bullet points to make your job easier. So through that, I think I outreached to like 10, and I landed about 4 or 5. Like the Web Agency podcast, the Freelancers Show, the Wave Review podcast, and the Smarter Freelancing podcast. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice, man. That's some good work right there. Obviously, a great hit rate. Yeah, this is an awesome. I literally just moved over to my to-do list and wrote this down to do myself as you were saying it. Yeah, one of the things that people don't think about is that you're not bothering these people, especially if you're looking and reaching out to shows who have guests on regularly. Like if there's a host who talks with a guest, guess what? They need guests.
Yeah.
It's not like a big reach to, it's not that unlikely that they'll say yes, especially if you can show a bit of credibility. People are happy to get people that they need, especially if they publish every week or every other day or whatever it is. You're not bothering them. You're giving them an opportunity to book another show and check that off of their to-do list and move forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I definitely targeted shows that I know are relevant, that like cover this type of thing. Like on the Web Agency podcast and a couple of these other ones, I noticed that they actually had episodes talking about productized services. So It's like this is kind of like a good follow-up to that. And yeah, like as you said, a lot of these shows, especially the interview-based ones, are always looking for guests. So I think it's important to do your research and know what the show is about, and make your cold email, kind of relevant, and make their job easy. Like give them all the links that they need to find out about you and all that stuff. So. Very
nice.
So again, I'm going to package all this stuff up and include it on the blog post. You can check this out at castjam.com/launch to get all these notes, screenshots of all these emails, the whole sequence, and you can use that and hopefully put it to use. Not that everything here was perfectly done, but hopefully you can kind of see how this was done over a long period of time.
And we talk about this all the time, Brian, where it's really good to see what other people are doing, especially at this level of detail that you provided. But don't think to just copy it exactly and it's going to work perfectly for you. You need to take this and then bring a little bit of thought and innovation to it to apply to your situation. But first, congratulations from myself and other people in the audience on a successful launch.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
It's great to see.
I was talking to you and others like in the mastermind group and stuff the day before the show, or the day before the launch. I was really, I was convinced like 0 people were going to buy this thing, and kind of freaking out a little bit about it. But and the other thing is that I stretched the launch 11 days, so that made the sales come in slower. Like that first day did 4,000, and $4,000 is nothing to write off, but I didn't hit the 10,000 was my number in my head. I was like, if I don't hit that, then I'm not gonna feel super great about this.
Right, just the amount of work you did and
yeah,
research.
Not that it was really all about the money. Again, it's like something that I'm passionate about. I wanted to teach. I enjoy teaching it, but you gotta have a goal that you're striving for. I hit the 10,000 mark 7 days in, and that was good. And after that, I just felt really, really great that blew past the goal.
Right, the rest is gravy.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about going into 2015 now and making this like a significant part of my business, especially what I do on castjam.com. kind of building out the course, doing a couple more of these live workshops and that kind of stuff.
Right. This is now an asset that you can kind of optimize over time and can be included as a stream of revenue on an ongoing basis. And that's it. Besides the congrats, also thank you for being willing to share all this stuff. I know personally I'm going to head over to cashjam.com/launch and download the whole thing and use it as one of my resources, if and when I'm going through this the similar type of process.
Awesome.
So, thank you.
Cool. So let's wrap it up because my voice is dying now.
And it's Friday. It's time for a beer.
That's right. I'm actually headed out to right now. I'm going out to New York City with my wife. We're going to see Mark Maron tonight.
Oh, no way. Very cool.
Yeah.
Is he? Oh, yeah. I think I heard him talk about it. He's got a date coming up in New York.
Yeah, something like New York Comedy Festival or something. So.
Very nice. Well, enjoy yourselves. That does it for us. To dig into the backlog of episodes, head over to bootstrappedweb.com. And if you want to be notified when new ones are published, and join the list. And if you're enjoying this, you're finding value in it, head over to iTunes, which you can now do directly on your phone, and leave us a 5-star review. Thank you very much. Until next week.
Later.